So I've been waiting ages for this to come out, and we're going to be taking a look at the Action 50th anniversary. You've most likely seen, or if you haven't, do check them out. I've put them in the playlist for Rebellion / 2000 AD. I've done reviews of action, battle action, the hardback collections, and also the limited series they had out recently. And they also did an unboxing and a look at the big hardback oversized deluxe edition of the first, I think it's 15 issues of Action when it first came out in the 70s. So a bit of background, Action came out in the early 70s. It was without Action, there'd be no 2000 AD. It came out about 2 years before 2000 AD did. It was overseen by the same creative team like Pat Mills, etc. And as the title said, he just wants to do action as extreme action for boys, but it was very, very extreme. So you had different characters like Dredger, Hookjaw, Look Out for Lefty. I've said Dredger, Hellman, and also things like Kids Rule OK, and numerous other things. Blackjack was another about this black boxer. And they just really pushed the envelope for how far they could. They basically just went to see how far they could go without the censors coming in. And they found out, I think it was after about 30 issues, something like that, there's a big public outcry by Parliament, and it got heavily censored and it got diluted until it was unrecognisable. But before then, it showed you how extreme you could be in comics and how to make it fun. And eventually it just got amalgamated into Battle comic, which was out at the same time, and it became known as Battle Action. But this is celebrating Action itself, so it's a 50th anniversary special. It's £6.99. You get 68 pages. It's really, really high quality. It's bigger than a normal comic. It's about the size of 2000 AD. And it's from the same publishing house of 2000 AD. It's by Rebellion. And so in this, like I say, you get 68 pages. It's £6.99. You get 4 stories, not 4, but 4. You get Hookjaw, which is written by Steve White and art by Staz Johnson. Hellman by Garth Ennis and art by Mike Dorey. Look Out for Lefty by Rob Williams and art by Patrick Goddard, who you last saw doing the art on Rogue Trooper and Red Dragon, which was a spin-off of Zenith. And then Dredger by Garth Ennis and Watchmen colorist John Higgins, who's an amazing artist in his own right as well. He did Dreadnoughts recently, which is superb. So there's 4 stories. Each one has about 14 pages, or a bit more. And the first one we look at is Hookjaw, and each story gives you a synopsis. It gives you a brief history of the character and the publication history as well. So this is by Steve White and Staz Johnson, and it wastes no time. It's got like 1 page of setup, and then banging you straight into the action. And so Hookjaw basically is this gigantic man killer of a shark. It's got a hook in its jaw, hence the name, and it's just out to kill and eat as many people as it can. And so this basically gives it the most condensed version you can get of it. You know where you're up to straight away with the story, and it doesn't hold back on the action and the violence. This is how the crossover should have been done by DC and Marvel and vice versa. You know, the Superman and Spider-Man and whatever else they did. Where instead of just having vignettes where there was like 3 or 4 pages, where you just got flavors, this is what you need. You need enough pages where the story can breathe, and you can have a beginning, middle, and end. And that's what you get with this, instead of just a beginning and an end. And then we move on to Hellman, which is written by Garth Ennis and the original artist Mike Dorey. Again, gives you a synopsis. This is just a superb war story. It was controversial for the time in the 70s. Oh, what I will say as well, each of these stories, apart from Hellman, which is set in the Second World War, they keep it true to its roots. So Hookjaw and Dredger is set in the 70s. Lefty starts off in the 70s, but then it shows his life, what happened to him since that period, which is really funny. But Hellman's set in the Second World War. But why it was controversial in the 70s? Yeah, there's world comics in abundance, but this was the first strip that did a story about a German tank command and Hellman was the leader of that tank command. But he was anti-Nazi, even though he was a German. He did not agree with the Nazi ethos. So that was like the caveat to like kind of include the story. But it was really good, and obviously Garth Ennis now is easily the best war story writer in comics for present day. So it works perfectly. It's so nice to see Mike Dory, the original artist, still doing the art for Hellman. I don't think anybody else has ever done the character. It's a really satisfying story. And then we move on to Look Out for Lefty. As I've mentioned before, even though I hate sports, I like sport comics. And this was basically about a very, very working class football team. And Lefty was extremely poor, just working class. They weren't looking for fame and glory. They just did it for the love of the game. And so it kind of becomes like a mini superstar, because in the 70s it was football wasn't as sanitized as it was now. So there's a lot more dirty tackles, etc., going on, and it emphasizes this. So like this, when he accidentally kicks the ref in the nuts. So Rob Williams is perfect at this because he loves football and he's got a great sense of humour. The art by Patrick God is superb. So it starts off in the 70s and then it shows how he winds up where he is today, which isn't that great. He's not the same lefty as he was back then. And it's basically like a kind of redemption arc, but a really fucked up redemption arc, because he kind of gets redemption, but not in the way he expected. And there's even a cameo from King Charles, so there we go. I loved it. Really, really funny. It had me laughing out loud. But my favourite story is Dredger. Gives you a synopsis here. This, like I said, is by Garth Ennis and John Higgins. Oh my God. Quite possibly the most violent story I've read in comics in about 5 years. And I loved every second of it. It's Garth Ennis putting his preacher hat on, but dialing it up to 100. And it works so well. John Higgins is the perfect artist for it. Yeah, it's just, if you imagine the Sweeney mixed with Secret Agents, this is what you get. It's just really, really wonderful. But like, one of the characters is this guy here, who's basically just this rotting corpse. He's got one finger, one tooth, got a stub of a hand on the other side, and it's self-inflicted. He was a bomber, and he basically one of the bombs that he made backfired and blew him up. And so Dredger is police in the loosest term, and he metes out his own justice, as seen here. But again, just look at John Higgins' artwork. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I would love for Action to come back, not just as a special, but as a monthly, like a Judge Dredd magazine. So they could do that. They've got enough. I want more, and this was so much fun. And there's this other bit where he force feeds this guy Semtex. He's making Semtex, and he tells him to eat it, and it has quite an explosive effect. And then there's another guy who he beats up. So it quite literally is balls to wall. When the balls hit the wall, they get smashed and crushed. Action, and it's great. And it initially it is a revenge story, but it's initially think, oh, it's revenge for this certain person, and it's not. And that's what makes it even more enjoyable. It was just such a pleasure to read. You can get this from 2000ad.com and other comic shops, etc., like Forbidden Planet. And if you're in the States, they will ship it to the States, and you can get it digitally as well. Highly recommend it. It was a real fun read, a very, very fitting tribute to a legendary comic, and yeah, I was really, really. Ooh. Nearly sneeze. I'm going to sneeze, but I'm hoping I can do it after I finish this. It was a fitting tribute to a legendary comic, and yeah, it made this geek really, really happy, because I love comic history. I love British comic history, as I've shown in other videos I've filmed where I've looked at classic collections of different strips. So yeah, ticks all the boxes. It was a tribute to a classic comic, but done with a very modern spin, without losing any of the heart, very bloody heart atmosphere. So yeah, highly recommended. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. Okay, bye.